see.
Yeah. Yeah. So first, I thought let me just brief about the company I work for right now. It's a company called Hykal. It is based out of Mumbai. The company is a listed company in the Bombay Stock Exchange with a principal shareholding from the shareholders, and also the company as name has come from the Hiramat and Kalyani family floated this company way back around 30 years back. So Hiramat HI Kalyani KL merges and makes the company name Hykal. Kalyani is a group, is the same company which the empire like Bharat Forge, Baba Kalyani heads that group. So this company is in, as I said, it's in existing last 30 years. Today the company we have around 2,200 employees working in this company with a sales turnover of more than $200 million, which is equivalent to I think it's around 1,600 crores. And with a market capitalization of almost similar amount of more than $250 million of market capitalization. We are into two main businesses. One is a crop protection business. Another is pharmaceuticals, active pharmaceutical ingredients. We as a company largely work for the contract manufacturing besides developing our own molecules. So as I said, we are in two segments, crop protection and the active pharmaceutical ingredient. So there are different various ways we operate, either the contract manufacturing, custom synthesis, and making APIs of our own or intermediates. So this entire business, how it runs is that, the customers or anyone comes to us either with at a laboratory scale of the process, or it could be also could have been done in the gram scale, kilolab scale, or could have been done already has been commercialized somewhere in the other part of the country or other part of the company, another industry. However, they willing to go to either de-risk their business. So they approach the CDMO kind of companies like Hykal, and so based on their need, we company delivers the services. So I'll tell you one of the regular way of doing this business is that normally customer comes to with a process of their own. It could be a very raw process. They would have just made the molecule in the lab stage, but they've not have fully got the handle on the entire process and the full details of the chemistry and the process engineering. That's when they approach the company like us. So what we do is that develop the molecule, bring the more details into the at a laboratory scale, come out with all the synthetic scheme, material balance, and also do the safety studies. So from there, we do the kilogram scale, from the lab to kilogram scale. So company has got a kilo lab at one of our place. From kilo lab, then it is developed to a pilot scale. So normally we have a pilot plants either in the both the sites in the crop protection, also in the API. From the pilot scale, then based on the learning from the pilot scale, then they are commercialized into the commercial scale. So in this entire the cycle, again, during the commercialization or in the pilot plant, there will be always some learning curve. Whatever the learning curve, whatever learning happens during this entire process, they'll put back into the process. That's how this cycle of continuous improvement runs. So this is just about the brief about the company. So I'll then move to the main interactive section. So anyone has any questions at this point, I can't see the chat box. Probably the anchor can see the chat box. If someone has any questions, they can put on the chat box, and the anchor can speak to me if there are any questions.
Not now, Prabhu. You can continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Coming to very specific to this interaction, I think more than a couple of weeks when Professor Srikanth was in touch with me for making a request to take a lecture. I really didn't have any experience in the past. Of course, we do a corporate presentation in the management, or even we do the training for internal employees. But it's a first of a kind of experience for me also interact with the students. Then I was just thinking what I should do, or what is that I should present. Running through my entire experience could be probably boring, but it will be taken care in the CV itself. So what I thought is that something, how do we connect what we do in the industry um, or in a commercial scale in the in our industry environment or a commercial environment, how it relates to our daily life. So that's what picking up that thread, I thought probably every one of us somewhere we connect in our daily life. From there, how do we build on uh, what we learn in the course curriculum or extra curriculum? How is it relevant? Uh, that's what I'll be taking out. So based on with that thought process, I thought let me take you through every day. Right now, I think you're all in the home or somewhere in the spaces. Uh, I think in everyone's life, his or her life, somewhere engineering embedded, industry is embedded in our lives. So I thought I'll cover this one. Take it as a topic is a kitchen and living spaces. So what I was when I was discussing with Professor Srikanth, he was also saying like this is also he also normally quotes these examples when he interacts with you and which to bring a connect. I think it's a matter of coincidence. I think it's a very good um, what you call thought process. So without taking more time on this. So everyone knows that one of the most single any first thing which connects we daily interact is one thing. Can you know? I don't know. Can someone can say even unmute and tell in the kitchen or in the daily life we interact with one subject. What is that?
Heat.
Heat. Not just subject. I'll say it's a matter. Without that, our living cannot just move. Uh, in the kitchen and everywhere.
Mechanical operations.
Okay. Okay. I'll anyone else? Third, I will give third choice. Third chance to someone.
Water, sir.
Huh?
Water.
Very good. I think the student has appropriately said, life is nothing without a water. Everyone knows that, right? So this is what we see. Of course, I'm not saying that. Of course, we breathe the air also. At the air also, engineer connects to that. I couldn't cover. I didn't take that into this one, but we can speak on. I can deliberate how the air is relevant in the industry. So we'll begin with the water. It's the right thing. I think without water, as I said, there's no existence of life, and you know that because the water, it house societies, or the townships, or the cities, or the countries, on the continents, I'll say that, keep working towards that. Keep working towards innovation to how to improve the quality of life so that water doesn't is conserved. Of course, on the flip side also, there's the battles people do undertake even for the water, either the river issues or all that. So I will not take you through the subject and all, but I will tell you what is water relevant as an engineer, all of us. Again, just a word of caution. I'm not meant here to explain the engineering concepts or any the theoretical part, which anyway you would be learning in your course curriculum. I think the respected like Professor Shrikant, everyone will do the needful for you those things. So what I'm just bringing, what is that? What you see in your daily life, how that is similar thing in the industry or at a commercial spaces. I'm sure if those students who are in either third year of engineering or a fourth year of engineering would have done either a apprentice or a practical training in some of the industries, would have already got an exposure. But nevertheless, it could be a repetition. But I thought, let me explain, take you through what is relevant in the industry. So what you see is here, I think typically in your home, you will see the AquaGuard, or today you have something called so many other water purifier you are seeing is that. And the center of the point is that, but what is beside, shall I have the marker just. So what is behind this beautiful, this machine is actually this unit. So this, whatever we call is in this today's process is called, I think everyone nowadays, we are not putting in any ordinary sedimentation, coagulation, removal filters, but we are putting up mainly the reverse osmosis filters. So this is what you see in your home, right? Typically, you can see this could be a sand filter, this could be a one kind of another candle filter. This could be a carbon filter, then followed by this could be a pump. This could be something like a RO, reverse osmosis filter. But will it be same something like this in the industry? Yes, but at least dimensions and the job may not be same. It will be different. So this is what you see in the industry. Even the water that we take in the home or the municipal water, public water works, this is how the water comes to our home or residence. What you see in the corner left is one of the very old conventional water filter bed. I think this could be a very massive 1 million, few million liters of day. So this is what normally we see in the municipalities. I think such a big infrastructure is hardly needed for, I think, plants like thermal plants where the huge water is required. But typically for a small plants, you will see a very, I think, there's a little small setup, not such a big ones. So what you see here is typically a filter bed with either it's a, when you say the filter bed, you would see that it is basically a simple filtration through a sand beds. You'll see at the bottom, you'll have let's say it's a pebbles or a big size of 2 to 3 inch size of pebbles, stones. Then after that, you may have a 1 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch pebble or stones, then followed by the fine quartz silica, and last will be the quartz silica. That's how the filtration takes place. It's a very, very large establishment. Then based on the dirt load, based on when the flux reduces, the it is gets backwashed and the dirt gets removed. That's what is one process. So largely we call this like, the filtration or sedimentation removal. Of course, before to do that, also certain sediments they don't get removed easily. That's where we do the pre-treatment with coagulants like alum, or to make flocculation we do polyelectrolytes. This is one way of another way of sedimentation in the clarifiers. Very huge circular clarifiers. A clarifier is normally typically made of RCC with a conical bottom, with a scraper running with a very low RPM, and uh, normally the dirty water enters the circular at the center of the weir, then the pure water just overflows onto the launder, and dirty water, the concentrate, we keep rejecting from the bottom of this clarifier. What you see here is actually is one kind of a reverse RO process. What is in the earlier slide, as I showed, is like a Europhobes in our domestic RO what do you call machine. Largely in our commercial established industry, this is how the RO plant looks like. Probably if some of you are in the large big society, this type of setup you would have seen in your apartments or big establishments. Here again, once a potable water comes from the municipal water, it's further treated into the series of sand and carbon filters and followed by the reverse osmosis. So this is in an industry, for a chemical engineer, water is one of the biggest subject, and it's a lot of it is a segment, it's an industry on its own. There are multiple industries with multiple technologies, and if one can make complete career path for his entire lifetime. Then only thing is, I think I'll take you through what is that next, what is relevant, what is the learning, what is important when you work in the industry, what is the connect as engineers we need to learn. This is also something related to the water. If some of you has gone to any pharmaceutical company or any sterile manufacturing company, this is what you will see. This is called water for injectables. That's what you normally see whenever in the when you go and buy at a medical store. There will be something API in the powder or in a form. There will be some glass small tubes will be there with a water for injectable. So this kind of set of water for injectable is actually manufactured. It's not manufactured. It's made. So this is like in a water for injectable is made at around 85 degrees centigrade. So it is a process of heating, cooling, condensing. Then eventually, once we ensure that the pathogens are died, no the impurities are there, then it is filled. Another thing is, I talked about the water, either drinking water or different kind of water that we use in the industry. Another important area which we normally see is water usage for the firefighting. Here also, as engineers, as a chemical engineers, do the lot of work in this designing. So firefighting or extinguishing is again a very niche area. It is a subject on its own. Designing and installing requires a lot of skills and also the necessary approvals also. So this is what I think you see. I think probably someone will see in the cellars in the big apartment or cellar of a very commercial big or a mall or restaurant. You would have seen these kind of distributors and the fire sprinklers. So this is where also here also we as you as an engineer or a chemical engineer contribute immensely in the designing till the execution. The right side part I just captured, it is how the distribution takes place. You know that in the municipality, it is not simply, it is not just coming through a line. It comes through a series of process with a networking and all. So what is it actually? So as I showed you in the first slide, the previous slides, there are many types of water that we use. First is raw water, what you get either in the natural body of like in the river, or what you get water from the bore. We normally use the term called raw water. Then either the municipalities or public works, they make it potable or a drinking water. In industries, again for the use industry purpose, it is converted into a soft water or demineralized water. The terms sometimes used interchangeably, but has a technologically both are different. You all know that. Soft water is normally done by the sodium resins with the sodium chloride regeneration. Demineralized water is normally made from the anion, what you call a cation catalyst, followed by the anion catalyst, with a regeneration with a different. First one with the sulfuric acid HCl, second one is the caustic. Fourth is called purified water. This is normally used in the pharmaceutical API industries. Last one I talked about is the water for injectable, very specific in the sterile environment we use it. And all these waters that we drink are used in the pharmaceutical gas as a standards. You know that. Like even if the water bottle you would have buying at the Bisleri or a, you will see something there's a standard, IS standard. Like that, we also have a portable standard, international standard by the WHO. You have for the pharmaceutical use what we call as a USP, pharmacopoeial guidelines are there. Each country has its own. Some countries also have standards on the water quality. Either I'll say that superior to the WHO, or largely either which WHO standard will be the bare minimum where we will have to meet. So what are the water that we drink must be meeting some of the standard of our Indian standards defined by our government, or whatever the water we use in our plants also is had to meet those standards. And to meet the standards, the entire the designing, erecting, or all that is a part of a core part of engineering. So treatment methodology is one where we significantly contribute in designing as an engineer. And last but not least, today, while water conservation is one of the biggest topic any industry anywhere we go, including in our societies we live, we talk about rain harvesting pits, all that we talk. So even in the water conservation methods, so there's a lot of technologies is used. I've not touched upon one subject, which is effluent treatment plant or a sewage treatment plant is also very important. They are so important, I tell you, that industries, I'll say that they become business continuity issues also, or what we call today in a very another term, what we call sustainability. If our processes cannot conserve the water, or we don't integrate the processes to reduce the water, I think then the survival will become very extremely challenging. That's where we as a engineering students, all this faculty, we add to this, significantly add to this area of water. So this is what all about water. I'll quickly move on to other topics. So you can, any questions you have, just you can put it on, keep it at yourself. Then you can ask me at the end of the session or at this. If anyone has something very important, I can ask them to allow them to ask. Shrikant, anyone?
No, nobody has written any.
Thanks.
You can continue.
Thank you.
Yeah, students, if you have anything, you can post the chat box in there.
So this is what I have been telling. So in the industry, we as an engineer, this is where we contribute in the water distribution. If you have to do the, let's say in the industry or a pipeline, if you have to do the designing, what is as an engineer we'll have to do is that we will be doing a flow rate. The design is depend upon the flow rate requirement or pressure requirement at the point of use. Is one of the, these are two elements we take care in the distribution in designing. Other design aspects are like a piping size, you know, that distribution length, number of bends, and we all know that in the engineering that friction, how the friction losses will contribute to the pressure drop, and you know that you have the pressure drop calculations to do arrive that. Once you know the entire the flow rate requirement, pressure requirement at the point of use, and the entire the distribution network, ultimately we decide what either the size, pipe size, or the pump sizes. So we as an engineer, that's one of the most important element to arrive at this conclusion. What is the size of the pump I should use, MOC, all that elements, material of concern, they will come into the next level. But when you look into the pump sizing, you would have heard all these things: flow, head, what is the power consumption. Some of the places NPS, which is very important. If you put it in a very at a high level where the liquid is so deep at a very at the bottom, if the vapor pressure exceeds your net positive section, it will start giving the cavitation and all. So that you know that that's a very, everyone knows that like a water you cannot pull beyond 10 meter, right, from the below the ground. After that it will start it will cavitating. But it's a water is very simple to everyone knows that. But what happens if it's a solvent? So that's again that's a different dimension. And looking at the pumps also, you typically you have a characteristic of Q versus head, and also at a different efficiencies of the power consumption takes place. So if you have gone through your various books, you will see all these pump curves. So these are all very relevant in the industry and designing, not just industry and also in the domestic areas. In the second slide, I talked about the fire hydrant system in the home spaces. Besides the fire extinguishers, this is also one of the most important things. Fire hydrant and fire water systems, it's governed by the regulations. In the office spaces and the buildings, it's governed by the NBC, National Building Codes. In other places, in the industries, it's governed by the NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency. It's a world design book where there are so many codes are there, 13, 14, 20. There are different code design codes are there. The designers have to adhere to those designing requirements. And normally this designing is done by a competent person and then it is executed. And this also calls for, you know, you would have seen that every year or every 2 years, it's a mandatory. Some of the establishments, companies will say that you'll have to take an NOC, no objection certificate from the authorities. So this in this entire also as a engineer has to play immensely plays a role. So that's the reason I thought I started with the water and how it connects as a functionally as a discipline, how is it relevant in our daily life. I don't know. I'm running out of. Sorry. Quickly. So in the now coming to the second thing, you have seen this in our kitchens, homes and kitchens, doing either your spouse or your own or your mother or your doing all this. Or you know, either grinding something, the powder, or making the slurry, and any like a paste or anything. That's what we use in our daily life. We will be seeing it, and this concept or something is also used everywhere in our chemical engineering industries, not just in chemical engineering, in other parts of industries also. But shape and everything may not be same. Look like they look a little different in the industry space. So this is what I captured here is a typically if one goes to the very powder processing kind of industries. I'm of course you in our daily life in the let's say in Atta and all we the flour mills also you would have seen it. So I'm not capturing that, but here in the industry, especially in the product like active ingredients or even in the when I say active ingredient, it could be a crop protection product, or it could be a pharmaceutical product, or it could be anything. Like example, it could be any kind of powder, tints, colors. At the final point is normally a grinding operation because we need to consistent quality in the powder, especially in the size of particle size, all those things. This is typically like a FIDS mill, what we call it's a FIDS mill. Inside they look like this. So with the blades, like similar to what you have seen in the kitchen grinder or something, you ultimately it's the same thing. It's a blades which is rotating at a very high RPM. There's a motor, and that's how the grinding and milling takes place. This is one method. Uh, this is if you again I very there's a limitation here. We in the FIDS milling, the particle size we can only get up to a maximum of what I know what I've seen, that not beyond 50 micron. If you have to get a very fine talc kind of material, or every day we use our talc, right? We use a powder talc on the board. I think that's one of the finest material. It will be I think it will be very very fine. It will be 1 micron kind of. If you have to make some products at such a low micron level, this is how we in industry what we call this as air classification mills or micronizers. This is done by using a compressed air. uh, Here it's like here there will be one kind of plate will be there. Plate will have a small holes. Feed happens through this one with through again feeding happen feed. This is a hopper. Feeding happens through a compressed air. Then grinding happens through a this compressed air, which is slightly higher pressure than the feed air. And the air goes through this. There are holes into it, and it micronizes the entire product. This is what normally you see in the very fine pharmaceutical manufacturing place. Then this air and powder goes to a separator, cyclone separator. Powder falls and collects it, and dust is filtered through a back filters so that no dust goes out. This is a another way. Like here I captured something what we see. We make us what you call as a just talking of some paste or a liquid slurry in our home. In an industry, something I've shown here something very little advanced. What is this? This is called inline grinding, slurry making. So here we put powder in this funnel. This is a liquid. It could be water or whatever. It could be anything with some dispersant. Normally in the industries, water, besides water, you have to add sometimes you have to add a dispersant which can make proper dispersion. So you will keep circulating through this inline mixture, then recirculating, and the powder gets mixed, and eventually you make a required concentration. So in a paint industry, what you see this method is largely used in very advanced companies. Not even the small company, they don't use this kind of technology. They will normally they will pour every powder in this reactor with a high shear dispersers. They will mix it. But if you have to go at a very very high scale, this is how is done in that. But this is normally will be a, you have very few Indian vendors. You will normally have to import this kind of equipment. So in our home, normally you see this white. White is actually a titanium dioxide. The titanium dioxide, it gives that white tint. It's normally it's made up to 70% slurry you can make. So in this method. So this is what is relevant to industry from based on the learning of what you see in your home, the mixer grinder. In the industry, the particle size reduction is very important. Uh, you cannot afford to have a lumps and all some certainly, because it cannot be usable. So the particle size reduction is one of the important unit operation that we use in an industry. Some places we use delimper also. If the lumps are very huge, we have to make it so that it can be easily bagged up, it can be packed, or it can be used in the next process. So then I talked about Fitz mills, which you can take the size of the particles to around 50 micron. Air classification, micronization is something we do for getting very fine micron sizes. For making a slurries, I talked about how in the paint industry, titanium dioxide is made in the high shear dispersers or inline dispersers. In some other places, again, one example like what you see in the paint, you have enamels, solvent-borne or water-borne emulsions. Sometimes, you allow to dig through bead mills and ball mills so that the slurry becomes very fine. Because say in a dry state or wet stage, there is a limitation high speed dispersers or inline dispersers. It has to undergo bead milling or mall millings to make it more fine. Eventually, these are the quality parameters we look at in whenever such kind of thing operation take place. Particle size distribution and the microson size. Particle size distribution is itself is one of the again is a technology on its own to measure it also. If you go to industry or anything, it's a very sophisticated technology. In a very raw, you can do in a Hegman gauge or something. You can put on the sheen gauges are there. You can put on you can see how the grains are visible at what level. That's one easiest method. Very sophisticated method is like a particle set distribution, which we will out inject the material into a equipment like a Malvern master sizer. Again, there are methods, dry method or wet methods are there. That's how you measure the particle size in the industry. So again, as I told you, why this is so important. If I'm referring to keep on referring to pharmaceutical industry sometimes is that because that's where the lot of because they add value in the dissolution. If they are not proper, then dissolution will not happen wherever the recipient places. So here again, I didn't tell you about the particle size. These are all mechanical operation. But you as an engineer, we as an engineer can contribute at the crystallization step itself, which I'm not talking about here. A lot of the particle sizes in a process can be defined in the reaction stage itself. So that is again completely something you will be learning or facing in industry areas, how it can be tweaked in the reaction steps also. So everyone would be seeing this the pressure cooker. Everyone, I think, will be cooking dal, chawal, rice, and everything will do it. 2-3 things I think you already know that important to note in these ones. I think you already know it, but it will be like that there's something called gasket, right, which will fix this. This is indirectly is a relief valve, pressure relief valve, which keeps acting. But what is more important, one has to focus on is this. This is called something. This is we normally ignore this. A lot of people don't know what is this exactly in the home settings. But this is very important as an engineer or anyone. So this is called what? This is a fusible plug. This hardly operates, and we should wish that this should never operate. Our in the home or something, our care should be this should not never operate. And our means that scenario should never happen. So learning from this is that that in the cooking in the industry we do a lot of heating, reactions, or all these things. There is some kind of learning from this. What we see, gasket tells you about the sealing. This release wall talks about the how the regularly venting has to happen. If something goes wrong in with this, there is something we call a fail safe. We call these kind of things are fail safe. In case something absolutely goes wrong, this is there to protect us. Feasible plug. These are, I'll say, the principles are what we use in our reaction kinetics, design the reactors, all that in our industries. But what you see in the pressure cooker, it doesn't exactly, the conceptually that don't look like that. This is what you see in industries, probably you would have already seen in the whenever industrial visits. They're typically reactions. I captured only a typical batch reactor. I'm not talking of how the plug flow happens, or even this is, I can say this is not even a CS, this is looks like a CSTR, continuous state reactor. So in our industry environment, in the plants I've been working.
Is it something wrong, or we have lost connection?
I hope
Agitator, if you are having it, it also has. Yeah, Shrikant?
No. For a few seconds, we lost connectivity.
Okay.
Now it's okay. You can go on.
So what you see is like a agitator, a stirrers with a motor, and you have I'm talking about the physical things, physical dimensions. So you have a body, MOC, it can be anything. Material construction reactors, typically you see in the pharmaceutical or in the chemical industry, you see a glass line reactors or a stainless steel reactors or metal reactors. Very in exceptional places, I've seen aluminum reactors also. We have seen all glass reactors also. Very types metal construction will be there, and various designs. Innumerable designs are there. Everyone has its requirements. It is fit for the purpose. What as based on the requirement, we have to go. We have to design this. So here, this is one of the biggest area. You as an engineer, we are engineer contribute immensely, because the R&D person will make it in the small. You see that in the laboratory, you are seeing they would have making in the small round flask all these reactions. But when you have to make it to a commercial scale, that's what you will have to scale it up from that level to here. So and the utilities also is one of the more thing. Important thing, what type of utility you should use into either for the depends upon the type of reaction takes place in the, it could be endothermic or it could be exothermic. If it's exothermic, you would like to cool it. If it's endothermic, you would like to heat it, so the reaction happens. And you will see some same concept what you are seeing like pressure cooker. You say that like this is vent system. This is also very important. Again, as an engineers, designing this sizing is very important in this one. So this reactor design and is a big subject. You all already gone through in our engineering that you know how the agitate. There are so many types of agitators. There are so many parameters to design it. All these things. But as I told you that this is very important in industry in these kind of ones. So here, what you learn in your course curriculum or during your training, you really see happening in the plants, and your contribution makes a lot of significant benefit to the organization. So I talked about, I told this about there are many types of reactors. You have got batch, semi-batch, or a continuous plug flow. Then there are various methods of heat transfer. You have either you can do the physically, it could be a jacket, or it can be limpet. Limpet is normally a spiral pipe which is welded to the body. Some places, if you have to increase the heat transfer area, we'll have to put in internal coils. Some places, even these 2 or 3 are not good enough. We'll have to do external heat exchanger for circulation. And these are what all the design elements we take into consideration. Material construction, I talked about, type of agitator. So all that you will have to, when you design it, all those aspects will come. Should I go for the pitch blade, or or the paddle type one, or it should be an anchor type of one? All these you will be able to do it based on the characteristics of the reaction, character of the materials. So many things will be there. There are so many criteria also. We should not ensure that one of the most important another criteria is the minimum steerable volume is very important in an industry. Because we want that when the reactor is getting empty, the last part also should get agitated. So there is a very special designs will incorporate. Sometimes we go beyond conventional design to ensure that minimum steerable volume is ensured. So I talked about the diameter speed, and you also would have learned already that when you do the scale up, there are various things you will take care in the scaling it up. Other is with or without baffle. You will see many reactors with or without baffle. The choice we will have to make is when to go for a baffle, when not to go without baffle. It is something, again, I cannot give any straight answer here. It is all depends upon the each experience, each reactor requirement, product requirement. Design pressure is one of the most important thing I talked about. Here, design pressure is if you are seeing a very high-end reactors like hydrogenator, the scale of design becomes even more. The requirements will further go up because hydrogenators and all, they happen at a very high pressure. I talked one is this mechanical seal. This part is called mechanical seal. How we seal the reactor agitator is one of the most important thing here in the industry. We often face the problem that reactor is leaking from these places. So there are various ways to do this. You put a gland design or a mechanical seal designs, double gland designs, and people do make a mistake when people don't operate it properly. And even this mechanical seal also, there's a heat generation happens. You'll have to cool it sometimes with water. Sometimes to hold the pressure, we'll have to externally put a nitrogen pressure also on the seal so that it holds it. Especially at a very high pressure, the seals are holded with a high pressure, external pressure like a nitrogen. Last but not least, this is very important in the design aspect. Chemical engineers add significantly in the designing, because some of the places you cannot leave it to the manual thing. You need to have engineering controls. Hence, the what we call critical safety instrumentation systems makes part of all this integral into the design. Level switches, flow measurements, vent sizing design, all this is important. So finally, there's something called here is the rupture discs. Similar what you have seen in the what do you call this pressure cooker, that fusible plug. In the industry, these are normally we put it in any reactor. Beside the safety valve, we'll keep it something rupture disc something. They are designed at a certain pressure. If in the eventual something goes wrong, this rupture will just go off. Nitrogen blanketing is one, I told you, some of the places we use for the sealing, but lot of places we use it for the safety purposes in the nitrogen blanketing in the reactors. Just 1 second. So I'll have to rush through, I think. So this is, I think everyone knows that in how we have consumed curd, or your you have seen how the idli batter or dosa batter is made. And what is connecting everything here to the concept here is everything is the fermentation. You would have known this. So you know that curd is made from the lactobacillus microorganisms. Batter is, we simply allow it to ferment with either with adding some pinch of salt, or sometimes we just add some vinegars, different kind of certain substance we add and allow it to ferment. So in the concept wise, what is important, the learn is that only few learning is out of that. Understanding is that, like when you make a curd, we take let's say 1 liter of bowl and we just add something small quantity. So in industry, we call that activity actually called inoculation, inoculating that one. But can you in a house, let's say if you have to make let's say 1 kl of curd, if you put a small drop, will it make a curd? Most probably not. So in the fermentation industry, inoculation forms one of the most important way to making a scaling it up. So again, I'll come to that inoculation, why how that happens even further. You know that this, like you're in the kitchen, you're seeing the products like the curd or making a dosa, a batter and all. In the commercial, in the industry, one of the, I'll take you the age-old process in the breweries is the sugar cane coming to the brewery is a fermentation process. We all know that. And another most in the old days, the classic fermentation also we used to, some of the products used to make from the classic fermentation. I worked in somewhere in the beginning of in 2001. I used to work for one company where we used to make oxytetracycline from the fermentation process. Oxytetracycline, I don't know those who know, terramycin, those days it was the first generation antibiotic. Today you must be seeing advanced antibiotics, but that is also made from the fermentation process. And today, if we talk about in today's old age, in advanced age, very advanced medical products like especially oncology products, cancer drugs. You would have heard MAB. They end with a MAB suffix. Monoclonal antibodies, trastuzumab, adasivimab. There are so many. There are different. I may not be able to spell it, pronounce it. Also, they are so difficult. But I can tell you these advanced drugs. I think adalimumab, I think, is made from this fermentation route only. I think if probably you can Google it. There's a product called Humira. You just Google it. It is the highest selling revenue in the entire world. It's a biosimilar. It's a biological product. It is made through normally when we make a biosimilar, we normally make through this fermentation process. I know that it's around $16 billion across the entire world, but it's made from this process only in the fermentation. So how it happens in this process, this is very important. If you choose to go to this the field, what you see in your house is the same basics are there, but at a commercial level, the scale, the complexity goes up very at a log scale. So as I told you, these are all made from the way we make a curd from the lactobacillus cells. These products are made from the different cells. I remember one of the product I was talking about is to make from something called Streptomyces rebosis, one albus. Those are the cells. Nowadays, what I talked about, the biosimilars is made from the something we call CHO cells, Chinese hamster ovaries, or something Again, we call there's something term called BHK, baby hamster kidneys. So if you Google it, it's a very big, vast subject. Here also, I think Professor Shrikant was talking about biotechnology. It is actually largely a biotechnology, but chemical engineering also can add immense value into this area field. So the process typically, as I said, it starts from the inoculation. These microorganism cells are is in a very microliter. Once they developed and all, they are normally kept at a store at a very frozen temperatures. Wet frozen temperatures means normally I have seen it as high as today. You must be already listening all this, right? In the corona COVID vaccine, how it is being stored at a one particular company vaccine has to be stored at a minus 70 degrees centigrade. Similar to this, these cells have to be preserved at a freezers. Blast freezers we call sometimes at a minus 70 degrees centigrade. Then after that they are inoculated. They are developed from how it happens. We cannot go directly from a microliter or an ml level to a kiloliter scale. It has to grow gradually. In the industry, how it happens, you will inoculate to a small first, maybe at 20 ml. From 20 ml, you go to 1 liter. From 1 liter, we go to a 200 liters. From 200 liters, we go to a KL scale. That's how the process develops in the manufacturing in the plant industry. So the cell is developed in the all the media, and you have to maintain a lot of conditions. You'll have to maintain oxygen, CO2 content, and the pH. Is all this is a very important in this one. So I'll skip all this in the quickly. You will see that this is what you see in the kitchen. You see the chimneys, but in an industry they don't. They look a little different, even complex. You see that chimneys represents, you remove the exhaust, but in the company they look a little different. They're a huge big exhaust, or if you go to big any industry, you'll see the exhaust. And you'll see the scrubbers also. Some places you got a half gases, vent gases, you got to treat it before they are vented. So this is also one area where you contribute as a in the designing. If you go to a very hazardous process industries, this design is a very important. Probably in your mass transfer is a course you would have learned in the either when you go to the tribal or mass transfer. This is how it is. You will designing this. How much size of the scrubber should be there? What side of packing it should be used? Structured, random. Again it's a big subject on its own. So, but typically you see this that this becomes a very important in the chemical engineering industry or any other industries. So I think this is the final one. I'll something related to what you see in the life is everyone sees in the kitchen. Of course, nowadays in the modern townships, you see the pipe gases also. So I'm not talking here about the how LPG gas. You know that Indian is LPG gas. LPG is a C4 and C3. There's a propane and butane. This thing. So and we heat it or burn it and we will cook it. So here I'm telling you something. I'm only the learning what's the relevant things. Of course, I'm not talking about how do we manufacture C4, C3, LPG here. How the cylinder is manufactured. I'm not telling those ones. Certain relevant things normally we see in the kitchen. We see some issues taking place in the kitchens. What is that we as an engineer when we go to any other places in a flammable kind of environment, what is relevant to us as an engineer? So I just picked up from the LPG cylinder, but it's the broader subject in engineering in the industry is flammable liquids and gases. This in part and parcel of measure the high hazardous process. If you leave the small industries and all, even if you go to even the paint, what I'm talking about, the lowest category of hazardous nature, paint is a MTO, mineral turpentine oil. It's a flammable, right? Thinner is a basically what we call is a MTO is a flammable. In your the vehicle you have petrol is a flammable. So I don't have to narrate all that. You all know that. So what is important is that we as engineer, what is important to learn the properties of these ones. It's very important to know what is the property of these things we handle. So once you know the property, we appreciate either it's a good uses and also bad what can go wrong. So as engineer, this is one of the most important thing. And in the industry, when we see all these gases or flammable gases, one of the first things, the moment we see that when you go to the plant round or anywhere, we would like to know what is this, all this about. So this information about this one is contains in the one sheet called, we call as a MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. You would have gone through this. This is MSDS is again universal. I can say there's a stand. It's almost like a standard. After going through after so many years of industry, you know that there are 16 number MSDS will be there. If you go into Google it, just find out how MSDS looks like. There are 16 elements will be there in the MSDS, starting from the its IUPAC name, structure, concentration, physical property. Then it will have a storage conditions, how to do the firefighting measures. All that will be there. So that's very relevant for us whenever you, as an engineer. Then you know, since connected to the LPG, you know that how the LPG is manufactured in the petroleum kind of industries, how from the crude till the LPG, from the crude petroleum refining, these are manufactured. In the petrochemical industry or the downstream processes, they further take all these things and make the other end uses, like a plastic or a, what do you saw, what do you see, the PET bottle, polyethylene terephthalate PET bottle, or the table acrylic sheet you are seeing. These are all the derivatives of the petrochemical products. So this is a very big area for a chemical engineer who are, I'll say that engineers who are will be working in a core, these kind of process. This is a subject you'll be touching most in our industry. And this is the most vulnerable area also in industries where we can the significant contribution happens in the designing aspects in this area. So I'll just touch upon this subject, which is very important. Probably would have learned it. We call in this environment, flame-proof fittings is one of the most important thing. So I just give one example. Just imagine our domestic installations has a flame-proof install equipment. We can avoid the incident that takes place in the domestic issues whenever some gas leakages happens. But typically, you know, we cannot have that. It's very expensive and all. The installation needs a lot of expenses. But in the industry, when you are handling tons of solvents, flame-proof design is a DNA, is a standard. You cannot do anything without flame-proof fittings. You cannot take a chance. So then that's a one important aspect in the industry. Another important aspect when we deal with flammable liquids and gases, which you normally hear is something called, I didn't mention here, it is the static electricity. Normally you would have heard in some of the incidents and all, it has happened because of some short circuit or something else static. But normally in industries, that's a one thing, but a lot of places, this static electricity is one of the most important thing we need to take care when we design it. Even today, this season is very prone for that. We are right now, let's say we are in winter season. We know that winter is a very dry season. The humidity level goes down as low as if you are in some part of Hyderabad or somewhere, it goes to 40 RH. So the vulnerability goes up when you are in confined spaces. At a dry atmosphere, static charge accumulation, dissipation goes down. So very quick thing, it's a water is like it's a conductive, but a lot of things are non-conductive, like wood is non-conductive, or some plastics are non-conductive. So there is, but that has to be taken care in our designing, all that in the installations. There you play a lot of important role. So this is, I think, what I thought is about concepts what you see in the kitchenware. So I'm just talking upon the three last slides. When you work in an industry, what is relevant? What is the what are the parameters normally we look at in measuring the performance? Everywhere that it could be either company, anywhere, any industry or anything. It could be not just industry. It could be even it can be a music band, or it can be a social NGO organization. There will be always there's a motto, there's a goal. So that's where there's something called objective. We call there's a key result areas and the key performance indicators. So once you are back, when you are in the industry environment, or in the where you have to deliver goods, services, or it could be anything unconventional. Ultimately, even in the business you are doing, what's the objective? Could be anything. It could be adding value to the customers, adding value to the patients, or making improvement to the life of every individual. Could be anything objective. Key result area can be a vast subject. It could be a subdomain of object, and the key performance indicators is another metrics. So in industry, now I just touching on that subject. This is what we keep looking at this is how we monitor our performances in our industry or anywhere. So what is those areas is I captured especially in the chemical kind of setups, petrochemical, all this plant kind of environment. These four things I mentioned is very, very important. S is for the safety. So safety makes or breaks organization. We as an engineer or everyone can contribute significantly. Safety is not just for engineer, it's in a daily life. It's what you do, let's say the moment you get up from the bed or get ready or something, when you, let's say you want to commute on the vehicle, on the bike or a car, whether you're wearing a helmet or all that, or a belt is very important. So again, safety, that's wearing a safety belt or wearing a helmet is again what we in engineering we call as the end of the hierarchy. In the hierarchy of control, that's the last thing. We as an engineer, we'll have to look at the how to make the process safe at the design step itself. If you cannot do it, so how do I make the process? How do I make engineering? How do I put the controls? Even if I don't put if I can't put the engineering controls, how can I have the administrative controls or procedural controls? Last thing is the hierarchy is the PPE, personal protection equipment. So safety makes is an important part in the working environment. Q is quality is given. I don't have to narrative it. That's what people will pay for. A customer pays for the quality. D is for delivery. If you can't make the product and deliver it in time, the customer will go to somewhere else. So delivery makes very important is another important parameter. Last four is a P. P is called productivity. Do more with less. Simple word. How to minimize the consumption? How to reduce the waste? This falls part of the productivity. Now, typically, I just picked up these elements in the industry. This is what keeps measured continuously, tracked continuously. And the underlying principle is I talked even in the beginning of my slide or in the my Heikel company introduction. I talked about the continuous improvement. We have to keep improving on all these aspects in the industry every day. So this is my two last slides. The personal takes, not necessary. What is this? It's an open textbook. What I meant to say this. I don't know, Mr. Professor Shrikant, you have open book tests?
No, we do not have actually. I think BITS is having.
Students, yeah. So when you studied, of course, in 93, 18 bits, we used to have open book test. In the semester, you know that each semester you have 4 exams, 1 open book test, and 1 comprehensive examination. And you know, one of the toughest exam used to be open book test. So I'm not telling here it's about that, but in our daily life industry, everything is open book. Means in the regularly you cannot carry a textbook, you cannot carry your mobile or something. You have to write your test with that in the limited time. But in your working environment, you are given everything. Or if let's say if you're going to, once I'm talking about the working, means once you graduated and when you go to either a company, you represent your company, or you want to make your own company or something, everything is largely tools are available open. I'm not talking about those proprietary in nature, confidentiality, those things, but majority things is available. If you want, let's say, I'm just giving example. Okay, if a professional you put a heat transfer test and all, maybe they will not allow you to take your what is that DQ card.
Yes.
But in your industry, you can carry book. You can open. You can carry your DQ card. You can carry Perry. You can carry everything. Then what is challenging in the industry then? If you have to carry everything, you have on the tips of the button. You have a Google. What is that relevant to us today then?
Linking.
Pardon? Yes.
Linking. How do you link your problem to that formula, or what is that is important? Which formula to be used?
Yes. Exactly, Professor. That. So this learning all this, to even to know that, let's say, if you are reading, to know that what is there in your in that space. Of course, you people, the modern millennials might say that, sir, I will do the Google search. It will, or if I give me a PDF, I will do the Control F and all. I can search it. That could be exception, but for majority of the things, even to what to Google, what to go, you need to know what is there inside. So it could be a McCabe, it could be a Perry or something. Unless you go through it once, or once you are practice it, even navigating through that becomes difficult. Later, then, if a problem is given, this is what you gain in the college. All this, you are expected that. See, we don't expect that in the industry. Once you come here, you'll tell the Fenske equation or Hagen-Pascal equation, Darcy equation, and all. You don't have to tell everything, but at least you will be able to articulate at least few things, right? Conceptually, you should be knowing it. Let's say same thing. We now go to one first thing. We talked about the water distribution. If you don't know the Bernoulli law, how conceptually, if I design the pressure drop calculations, how do I do it? At least know the concept, how to do it, or where to do it. You'll not, even if I give a book, you'll not be able to do it. So this is where the learning becomes very extremely critical in this. So that's what I just might take away from to you, a small takeaway. So this is my last slide. I think I'm exceeded the time limit. I think just Google these 3 words. You will get know all these. What is these 3 things? For everything, for as an individual, knowledge is very extremely important, and just knowledge is not enough without a hard work. And both these get, I'll say that, emboldened, multiplied, or improves. Everything gets multiplied. Everything goes. It gives results only when we have this attitude. So normally these are 3 things. I strongly believe in this. Just Google it. One more very peculiar coincidence. Knowledge total, if you do it, I think it's around 96. If you take the A is 1, B is 2, or a C is 3, if you add knowledge, I think it's a 96. Similarly, hard work, if you add alphabets with a number, H for something, it becomes 98. Attitude total gives 100. So in the industry settings, while knowledge, hard work, all these important, attitude makes significant difference to the outcomes. So we normally measure there is another way to call work, we call 2 C's, competency and commitment. So people will have a competency, but they will not have a commitment. Those who have a commitment will not have a competency. All these measures. So this is very important aspect when you are in your daily life, in the industry environment. This attitude towards learning, attitude towards the makes gives significant makes things easy. So I think I'm running. I took substantial time of you. Thanks a lot for your patient hearing.
Yes, students, if you have quickly, you can ask some questions.
Other people are exhausted already.
Yeah, someone you can ask anything. So I think Prabhu also goes to NITs, number of NITs for campus interviews basically, actually. And he selects people based on his experience. So you can ask.
Yeah, nowadays go, but I remember having gone 5 or 4 times to NIT Warangal for campus interview. NIT Trichy, I think once I've been, long back I've been to IIT Mumbai also for the recruitment.
Okay.
So normally I look for those kind of industry. It's very this kind of touching daily connect, how the students are able to connect what they're learning. Normally I test it.
Okay. Yeah, Anjali, you can further proceed.
Yes, sir. On behalf of Department of Chemical Engineering, I am thankful for the speaker and the audience. Now I request Aniket to propose a vote of thanks to our guest. Aniket? Aniket? Aniket, please proceed.
So good afternoon. I hope here's some problem with the internet connection. So On behalf of Department of
Okay, this is our HOD, present our working HOD, Mr. Anil, who is talking about.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sir, on behalf of Department of Engineering, I thank you for taking your time to spend with our students and sharing your experience, and then integrating kitchen with the industry and for better understanding. Kent Engineering, now they can have a better understanding that they have so many equipment in their home and they can fit into it. So thank you for your suggestions and for your things, and thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll
Thank you.
catch
Thank you
later.
a lot. Thank you a lot. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay.